Okay, in this video I'll explain how to use the Mamiya RZ67. This is the Pro 2, if you need to know. Alright, I guess what we'll do is we'll start from the front and go to the back, because the back's where the back plate lives, where you have to load and unload film, which we'll probably leave for another video. So near the front we've got our lens. We could see what lens we've got by just reading over here. I don't know if that's in focus or not, but 50 mil. This here knob is for focus zoning. You don't really need to worry about this if you don't know what focus zoning is. It's not a big deal. It does not change your focus, so don't stress about where this is at. Over here, this is your aperture, so you can open up your aperture to up to 4.5 on this lens. It goes all the way to 32. You've got your depth of field checker over here. This comes in handy if you're just trying to see how much depth of field you have in your shot, or how a little bit, kind of gives you a little bit of an indication of how bright or dark your shot is. Yeah, if you're not really worrying about like special depth of field stuff, you probably don't need to worry about this when you're starting out. This knob over here will let you remove the lens, so just leave this as it is. You've got your shutter releases, and your focus over here. So this knob over here will change your focus. Same with the exact same knob as over here. You'll see it's on both sides. This one over here is one that I like to use because it comes with two different dials. One dial will go at a specific speed, so this is the big movements, whereas this one's for fine-tuning the focus. It's just a little bit less geared and less sensitive. Cool. What you'll notice is when you're changing focus, a chart here. This chart could be pretty confusing. Feel free to completely ignore it and just use the viewfinder to kind of tell by eye what's in focus and what's not in focus. That's usually what I do. But if you want to know how this focus chart works, you first off have to know what lens you're using. So over here it says millimeters. That millimeters thing is for what lens are you using. So we found out that we're using a 50 mil lens, which means we need to look at the 50 line. And this might be hard to get in focus and stuff for you to see because it's pretty small. But over here, there is a small little white dot where the 50 line is. So that shows me a red line that goes this way. So that's the only line that I need to look at whilst pulling focus with this lens. If I had, let's say, a 150 mil lens, I'd follow that 150 mil until I see that little white dot. There it is. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little white dot on this blue line that's going like this. So on a 150 mil lens, all I do is focus on that blue line, and you can ignore all the other lines. This is a 50 mil lens, so it's just that very first red line, which means, if I rewind all the way to the beginning, it means my focus goes from this point, not very far, this point to this point. So I'm following that red line, so if my red line's hitting it here, that's now focused on infinity. If I move my red line over to here, now it's focused on, so that red line's intersecting with this 0.9, so that's 0.9 meters. So if I want to focus on somebody that's 2 meters away, you would just dial this down till about yay, where that red line hits that 2. Not much movement with the 50 mil lens, but I guess that makes it easier for you as well. Cool. Here's my crank, so I can crank my film so I could take a shot. So once I have film in here, you just roll this over and then click to take a photo. The viewfinder is right here. So I'll just put this down so you can see. In order to open up the viewfinder, you just literally just pull it out very, very lightly, and this whole spring mechanism is going to pop out. And there's your viewfinder. You can see what your camera's seeing. Sometimes it's a little bit hard if your tripod is quite high. If you've got a tripod and the camera's up pretty high, so usually it's easier to shoot a little bit lower so that you can actually put your head down here and have a look. But not a big deal. You can kind of, yeah, you'll figure it out. in order to put it down, don't just try to press it down and push the whole thing down. It's not going to really fold back the way it came up. You're going to have to manually just push this down, and then just, it's still very light. Push this down, and then lightly give this a little push, and then on this side as well, a little push, very gently, and fold it back down. So to bring it back up, whoop, to fold it, push this down, push these sides. You kind of need both hands to do it. There you go. Let's look at the other side now. So the other side, we have here, this is just a hot shoe mount for any kind of attachments you have, like a flash or a microphone. Okay, probably not a microphone, but like maybe a light meter could go there as well. Here is our shutter speed. So this again is just our focus dial. This is a focus lock, by the way. So if you've got the focus perfect, you can move this all the way to the end, and then now this is locked. So yeah, if this isn't moving your focus, just make sure this lock is on this side, on the back. Okay, back to your shutter. So this is your shutter speed. So you can't change your shutter speed if you don't have a battery. So make sure you have a battery plugged in so you can adjust your shutter speed. I think it goes to default of like 400 if you don't have a battery. And you've got your bulb modes and stuff. So it goes from 1/8 of a second. Oh, sorry, that's 8 seconds. So it goes from 8 seconds to this is 1/8 of a second, 15th of a second, 30th of a second, all the way to 400th of a second. Because you'll possibly be doing this handheld, if you're handheld on a 50mm lens, you probably don't want to be any slower than this, than a 60th. So yeah, so you probably want to be on these higher numbers for most of it. Unless you've got a tripod and you're doing like longer exposure. So you'll see this little symbol over here. This symbol is for a landscape aspect ratio. You could change it to a portrait shot if you want. The way you do that is you change this to the R, and then now you can rotate this back and forth. Just make sure to go back once you're done, and that locks it. So now we're doing a portrait shot. And again, you'll notice in the viewfinder your little viewing angle has changed a bit. I might just change it back to landscape, and this is probably where we're going to stop for talking about the film change.